What's up, everybody? I'm Jason Visenberg.
And I'm Michael Visenberg.
Welcome to Viseland. Playoffs are here now.
Play-ins are here now.
Well, play-ins, yeah, playoffs start over the course of this upcoming weekend. We're recording this in May 18th, 2021. But the play-ins are here, and we actually had our first 50-point game in NBA play-in history. Jason Tatum, unfortunately, LaMelo Ball's
happened quickly.
Season comes to an end. Yeah, we already have a 50 points, so there's a pretty good scoring bar from maybe Steph or LeBron to try to do tomorrow night. How are you feeling about the Western Conference play-in situation?
It should be interesting. Unfortunately these two games really were not. So that was kind of like the first game. Obviously, Indiana just completely blew out Charlotte, and then for a while, Boston and Washington were keeping it pretty close, but in the end, yeah, it was Jason Tatum time. And somebody, I forget who, but somebody made a pretty good point in that, like, Bradley Beal with one leg probably was like an odd decision to be guarding Jason Tatum.
Yeah.
And Bradley Beal not known for his defense in the best of times.
Well, yeah, and I think like kind of height differential, like what Jason Tatum's game does too, would not also.
I know it's like a big brother, little brother situation as well, with them being from St. Louis. And yeah, it was Jason Tatum, definitely best player on the floor. Kemba Walker certainly showed up to play in the second half as well. And yeah, Boston got it done. So the higher seeds holding court so far. But yeah, it could be you never know what's going to happen tomorrow.
There's still one more game going to be on Thursday. So we'll see what happens there between Washington and Indiana.
Yeah, and then Memphis, San Antonio tomorrow. And of course, the game that everybody wants to see is the Lakers hosting the Golden State Warriors.
And not that the NBA is rigged or anything, but you think if like they wanted people to actually watch these playing games, like that's like their dream scenario to happen.
Oh yeah, I don't think they could have come up with a much better one for the West 7-8. Yeah.
Yeah, because if that's like, I don't know, like Portland against like the Pelicans, like
well, I don't know, like if you had like let's say like Luka versus Zion or like something like that, but I think LeBron James versus Stephen Curry, yeah, pretty big deal.
I think dudes that feel they need to be in the finals, that have had that, playing in this.
We met in 4 straight NBA finals.
Yeah, so I think the fact that they're both there in this situation, it's like, okay, like,
yeah,
let's get some eyes on this. So hey, good on the NBA. Best of luck. We'll see what shakes out. We'll have playoffs in full swing next week. This weekend was also a big basketball event weekend. We had NBA Hall of Fame inductions. They kind of did like 20
basketball Hall of Fame, sir.
Yeah, sorry, basketball Hall of Fame. That's the greatest apology I could.
Some NBA players did get inducted.
NBA players did get inducted.
Some big time NBA players.
Correct. And also they kind of announced the 2021. They kind of did it the Final Four, but then they kind of did like more announcement of just like confirming the guys for the upcoming year.
Yeah.
But yeah, out of all the classes, this has to go down. The main NBA guys, we're talking Kobe, Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett.
3 huge players. And
basically every All-Star game from like 1998 to like maybe 2000.
3 biggest players from those mid-90s, like the 95, 96, 97 draft, like all the biggest players from that draft.
And they also said it was the second time it's happened where all players at one point in their career had like a signature shoe. Like Kobe had his, obviously, his Adidas, Nike. Kevin Garnett had his Nike. Then he went to And1 and Anta and everywhere else. And then Tim Duncan had like the Total Foamposite Pro from Nike. And then I think Adidas did a little something for him later down the line.
Mm-hmm. And then, we found out the 2021 NBA Hall of Fame class. As far as NBA players are concerned, you have Chris Bosh, who it's crazy. It's been 5 years since he's retired. Chris Webber, who I think was eligible at least a couple times before, but finally was inducted. You have Paul Pierce, who was a pretty obvious first ballot Hall of Famer, and Ben Wallace, who was a longtime player as well. Also, Bob Dandridge, who I think has been elected posthumously.
Well, because they have different committees. There's kind of like the kind of current committee. There's like a veterans committee. Like, so there's kind of like a couple different like tiers in which you can get in.
It is the Basketball Hall of Fame. So yeah. Yeah, Bob Dandridge. And then, of course, from the International Committee, but a longtime NBA player, you had Tony Kukoc, who was on 3 of those Chicago Bulls NBA championship teams and had a nice international career even before then, and played with Yugoslavia and Croatia. Yeah, so I think with the Hall of Fame, it is the Basketball Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And like you're saying, they have all those different committees. And not everybody is a first ballot Hall of Famer. Surprisingly enough, like a player like Reggie Miller didn't make it his first time. Eventually was chosen for good reason. But yeah, like there are certain players who you're like, okay, like these guys are absolutely locks, and others who you have to have a discussion about. And I think it depends on the year. And yeah, it's always like a debate as to whether this player has a Hall of Fame resume or not. And that's where, like, you know, interesting things get involved in terms of, like you're saying, like with veterans, in terms of international playing career, it usually is one that gets brought up.
And there's been a few NCAA too, where they've had NBA careers, but like they haven't been at the same levels their NCAA was, but you know, aggregate work, you know, as a total.
Still basketball.
Yeah.
Still basketball. Yeah, I should the NCAA count close to as much as NBA if they go on that path? Absolutely not. But yes, like who are like college basketball players who you say like put themselves over the top as Hall of Fame players?
Ralph Sampson kind of comes to mind a little bit.
That's a good one.
Not at that NBA level. That was the one.
Yeah,
like,
well, he had the, you know, injury shortened career.
Yeah, I feel there's a few others out there. I have to go double check, but yeah, for the most part, I mean, it's NBA generally is what does it, unless it's, you know, an international player who obviously like had like a, you know, world Olympic.
Yeah, the player that always comes to mind for me in the Hall of Fame, and I know he was considered a very good player, but Calvin Murphy is somebody, like, you know, I do like kind of like the Murphy test, and you know, one-time All-Star, long career, but don't think he ever wins an NBA championship. Yeah, he was with Houston, so
yeah, he was with Houston during that era, so no.
Yeah. Yeah, plays in 51 NBA playoff games. He was an amazing free throw shooter, but I think like a large part of him being inducted was likely what he did after basketball and what he did in college as well. So yeah, but at the same time, I can't hold like every player in the NBA right now up to Calvin Murphy and be like, okay, like this guy was better than Calvin Murphy, so he should make it.
Okay.
And you had like you had like Rudy Tomjanovich talking about Robert Horry being a Hall of Famer, and like the guy obviously had like one of the best role playing careers.
Yeah, I think like a historical note, like people should know about him because it's like a super cool career trajectory of like he wins 2 championships his rookie year, you know, he ends up going to the Lakers, does 3 there, then ends up with the Spurs, you know, hit some super crucial big shots along the way for pretty much.
He hit some like insanely huge shots, obviously.
Yeah,
he was always known for his clutch ability. And then like even when he was with San Antonio, he had like a few of those like flashes in series where he would like, you know, like take over a game.
No, there was a one against Detroit in the finals and they like kick it back out to him. He makes a 3. Like even Tim Duncan's like, yeah, we had to give him the ball. It's like big shot Bob. Like that's what happens. But yeah,
244 career playoff games for Robert Horry.
And then 7 championships.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
But he has career averages of the regular season. He's 7 points and 4.8 rebounds. And then in the playoffs, he does get up to 7.9 and 5.6. But yeah, I would have a really hard time making a case for Robert Horry, who himself always said that he would rather have had like Reggie Miller's career than his own career.
Yeah.
And as cool as Robert Horry's career is, and like, you know, obviously the guy won like 7 championship rings. It's pretty hard to justify him being a Hall of Famer. But yeah, I just think everybody kind of has like a different idea of what Hall of Fame means. And we want to go over active players and see which ones are locks, see which ones have a good case. And then we're going to get a little crazy here and go over some of the young players and talk about which ones are starting at least in the throes of possibly making the
Trending
case.
in that direction.
Yeah. I still have work to do. Like I found that like, I think the 2013 guys, like there's at least one 2013 guy right now who I think is an absolute lock to be in the Hall of Fame out of the 2013 NBA draft. But yeah, so I put together a little list and we're just going over active players. So nobody that's, retired for the NBA and set to be a Hall of Famer in the next little while. But yeah, we want to go over and I thought the debates this past little while have been pretty fun. So
yeah, totally. Because again, it's
Jason and I are going to kind of debate some cases for players to be in the Hall of Fame. And I think like if you're talking about like a really good NBA resume, like some people think that it should be like, they should be multiple time All-Stars. Some people think that it should only apply to like guys who are like top 10, 15 players, like multiple All-NBA selections. In the end, I think like, you need to have All-Star games. You need to have all NBA certainly helps a lot. And I think it's usually pretty well needed in many cases. Or like the one case that Robert Horry would have is winning lots of championships or being part of lots of really good and competitive teams and being crucial pieces of that as well. So yeah, that's kind of our criteria, or at least what we think of when we think of Hall of Famers. And we'll start. I'm just going to start with the 2003 draft.
I'll just go over the eligibility requirement for the Hall of Fame as well. This is straight off the Hall of Fame.
Go with it.
So again, it's the Basketball Hall of Fame, so it's not pure NBA career, but obviously NBA is probably the heaviest weighted thing. So for a player must be fully retired for 4 full seasons before becoming eligible for enshrinement. They may be considered for enshrinement in the 5th year of retirement. Should a player come out of retirement for a short period of time as defined by the Hall of Fame, the eligibility would be pushed back or reviewed on an individual basis. And basically what happens is they go through a couple different committees and they have to receive, certain numbers of votes to go through. Surprisingly, unlike baseball is actually slightly more transparent, where a lot of the sports, there's a lot more sports writers and people, it's like bigger pools of voting, and like a lot of them share out their ballots. A lot of these ballots are secret, so we don't know who voted for or against, some of these guys, because a lot of people just like to be contrarian, and sometimes players you think are like everyone should vote for don't get those votes. And then if the player is on that nomination ballot for 3 consecutive years and does not get any votes, they are then dropped from contention, and they would basically have to wait for like the rest of their life until they could make it into that veterans kind of bucket.
Interesting. Yeah, that is pretty crazy.
Yeah,
and
it's a very
have that 3-year window of after
of getting no votes. But that's why
getting no votes at all.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So like there's a certain number of people, there's a certain number of votes you get, and if there's a player that just doesn't get those votes.
Robert Horry might be in that bucket.
He could be, but honestly, the hard thing with in researching this too is like it is very secretive, about like how those voting processes work. Whereas baseball, you can kind of deduce quite a bit from like sports writers just posting their ballots, and you've got to be like, okay, this is the vibe of like who's really getting those votes. This is kind of a little more like hush hush.
We need to catfish you into being a Hall of Fame voter.
If they're listening to this, I would love to give it a go. Sounds really cool. I like.
I mean, like no, like you. It's not going to work right now. We need to make like a whole personality, a whole profile. Maybe turn you into a woman. Get one of those like things there, and then through your series of work on the Hall of Fame, you may be a voter and you can expose beyond the curtain.
we'll see how that goes. We'll see how that goes next. But we'll start with the 2003 draft. Obviously, this is a super, super talked about draft. So the reason we're starting, 2003, because basically,
Yeah, we're starting in 2003, and we're starting with the one guy who is still around in 2003.
well, also, yeah, because like everyone 2002 and below is kind of out of the league, and there weren't that many players from those draft classes, to be totally honest, that really are worthy of the discussion that aren't already known. Yao, Pau Gasol, that kind of thing. But
yeah, but those guys we're just talking active players.
Yeah, no, totally.
Oh yeah. And the one active player from 2003 just so happens to also be a generational talent, and that is LeBron James, who I think has been a lock for the Hall of Fame for quite a while. When do you think LeBron was officially like a Hall of Famer?
Honestly, the first
probably like year 5.
Yeah, I think like a couple of those like series that he had against like Detroit and then like he takes
that was year 4.
I know, totally. And then like he takes it to the finals. Like I think those kind of pretty much had it close to.
I think like probably after
or however many, and like all those MVPs.
Like it's as soon as his career was done in Cleveland, he probably could have retired and been a Hall of Famer. But anything on top of that was just gravy, pretty much, right?
Yeah, like four times.
He already won 2 MVPs. He had been to the NBA Finals only once, but had some deep playoff runs, and has been an All NBA first team selection
16 times.
Wow.
16
times?
Yeah. Four-time MVP. So yes.
Absurd. All right.
Yeah, so
yeah, we don't even need to go into more of that because it's LeBron James, obviously a Hall of Fame lock. Yes, if we want to go into other players from that draft, Chris Bosh obviously makes it. Oh, and there is another player from that draft who is a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I'm kind of a little appalled that you didn't.
I had left off the list.
Who just got himself in the top 10 in scoring, playing for.
But I made a list of locks, and I find this player to be an absolute lock, and I would be surprised if he wasn't first ballot as well, and that's Carmelo Anthony. So there are 4 guys from that draft class who are now with Chris Bosh being a Hall of Famer, I don't think there's any question. You have Dwayne Wade and then Carmelo and LeBron James, and going over past draft classes, that's a lot of guys. But having 4 guys in the Hall of Fame is
4 Hall of Fame class.
Pretty rare. Yeah,
pretty strong.
That's not very common, and so I think that's that with 2003. And then for 2004, we're going to talk about a player who I believe is a lock and a player who I think has a case. And I think those are the only 2 players from this class who really are probably getting HOF buzz. And I think Dwight Howard is an absolute lock. I find it hard to believe that Dwight Howard's not eventually going to be a Hall of Famer. I know the people.
8-time All-NBA.
Yeah. How many time Defensive Player of the Year?
3-time Defensive Player of the Year. He led the league in blocks twice.
Was it 3 times in a row he won DPOY too?
Let me see the years.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
8-time All-Star.
And he ends up getting that championship last year with the Lakers as well. So just adding.
Yeah. Obviously, he did play roles in some series. Obviously, I think the biggest series you remember from Dwight in that one is Denver. Then in the NBA Finals, they pretty much are we're good. We need some other lineups here, and but he's one of the best rebounders in NBA history, or at least of the modern era. And he was at times a great offensive option as well, and carried some of those Orlando teams, was in the MVP discussion a few times. So I think Dwight Howard's done enough. Is he very cringeworthy? Yes.
Yeah.
Is like, has he had some kind of unceremonious seasons as of late? Yes. But I think he's done enough. Like, was his time in Los Angeles the first time kind of cringeworthy?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No, definitely.
But,
And there's a few random teams he's ended up on. You're like, oh, Dwight's on this team now. Okay.
yeah. Yeah. I think that team was like, Dwight's on our team now? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think he's absolutely a Hall of Famer and likely first ballot. And yeah, like there was definitely a time where, like, a few years where Dwight Howard was like a top 10 player in the NBA. Then the other player from that draft, who is likely the second best player from that draft, is Andre Iguodala. And that one is a little more difficult of a discussion. Here's Andre Iguodala's case. He has been like, well, he won the NBA Finals MVP in 2015. He's been a one-time All-Star. He's made the all-defensive team a couple times. He was like, at least like Golden State's like fourth or fifth best guy like a few times during those finals. Like the death lineup was possible because he was in it.
Yeah, was putting him in.
And he made 6 straight NBA finals, which is kind of cool. Like, you know, who would have thought like Andre Iguodala joins Miami, and like, while Andre Iguodala wasn't like a key contributor to that, it was still cool that he was there and he was still part of it. And then obviously with Golden State, those other 5 seasons. So yeah, I think Andre Iguodala at least has a case, and I think he has a much better case than like a player like Robert Horry.
Yeah, I think
he's never an All-Star.
He's kind of like a Robert Horry plus, because he's like, was, you know, kind of a contributor, but he did, you know, he did get that MVP. He does have an All-Star earlier in his career.
Yeah.
But it's like total, like, do you think of him in that like all-time circle? Not necessarily, but then when you like really like zoom in and kind of look at his game and look at the impact that he had, especially in, you know, some of those series for Golden State, it's like,
yeah, like, and I guess the pushback with Iggy would be like the fact that, you know, since Golden State has been good, he's never like been like a double figure scorer. But I just think it, like, his, just the unique package of his defense, his passing, his ability to handle the ball, like, he's this ultimate linking like player that every team wants. And I think that gives him at least a strong case as a Hall of Fame possibility. And yeah, I think he's somebody that eventually makes it. And you know, if it's like a year where, you know, you're kind of like grasping at straws for really.
well, and the thing is, pretty much every, so Cedric Maxwell is actually and then you get to Chauncey Billups, like who's current, and you get to some of those, but yeah, pretty much every NBA Finals MVP has made the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. A little surprised Chauncey Billups hasn't been named to the Hall of Fame yet.
It's a little shocking. I think Chauncey Billups, yeah, like he was the guy on those Detroit teams, and he hit some Mr. Big Shot for a reason. I mean, I think he's
like, even like JoJo White eventually like makes the Hall of Fame, right? Like,
yeah, 2015, JoJo White made it. So
that was like his like a veteran player, like, you know, like a Bob Dandridge.
Yeah,
but nonetheless, he does make it. Yeah, I think Iguodala is somebody that at least gets talked about as a possibility there. 2005, the one guy who I'll give HOF cred to, and he's a lock and first ballot guy, is Chris Paul. And Chris Paul has done so much as a winner. The more you like think about it, like, Chris Paul is probably going to finish like, I'm thinking like 4th or 5th in MVP voting this season. I don't know if he'll make the All NBA first team, but he might. And I think he's going to make the All NBA second team. I think he was 3rd team last season. And yeah, he's just done so much to make whatever team he's on like a much better team. And he's one of the best point guards of all time. An amazing shooter. Like that I don't think that gets talked about enough with Chris Paul. It's just how ridiculous of a shooter he is. Obviously a fantastic like distributor, and like just if you have Chris Paul, your offense is likely going to be very good.
And your team is likely, gonna go to the playoffs pretty much.
Yeah.
This,
Oh man, yeah, it's crazy. Like obviously Phoenix was on the right path, but adding him, I think, gave like another kick. And
that took them from ninth to
happens.
like ninth to like the top too.
Yeah. They're second seed in the West, and Chris Paul, Hall of Famer. Not really much of a discussion there, and we can just move on because
no one else in this draft is I don't even know it'd be up.
Well, there aren't any like current guys, and I think the only other guy like who might get like mentioned as a possibility is Darren Williams, and at a time like I would have thought Darren Williams would be a lock, but I'm not exactly sure where he stands currently, like in terms of Hall of Fame talk. 2006, there still are active players from here. Like we're getting into the range where they haven't played like an insane amount of time, though we just heard about the retirement of LaMarcus Aldridge. But nonetheless, LaMarcus Aldridge was active this year. I've always thought he was at least a possibility. I think Kyle Lowry's done enough to be in the Hall of Fame. And to me, like he and LaMarcus are like neck and neck there as the best players from this draft. But yeah, Kyle Lowry's like just been on so many good teams, and then winning the championship, I think, cemented that. Is he a first ballot? I'm not sure, but I think that he's had a Hall of Fame career.
Yeah, I think he's one of the toughest players of this era.
Yeah.
I think that's
gonna be it like really got into his own like later on in his career.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that was the thing. Like it took him until like he was 24 was the first time he averaged in double figures in Houston, plays a couple years there. And then finally like in Toronto, he has that long stretch where he makes all those all-star teams, and he's been all NBA once, but nonetheless, I think that he was a very like tantamount to winning, and a great defensive player as well. But is it wait? Kyle Lowry never made an all defensive team?
Surprisingly, no.
That's insane.
It's kind of crazy because you do.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's what you think of first.
Yeah. Wild, man. All defensive teams are weird.
Yeah, but like, and then LaMarcus too, 7-time All-Star, 5-time All-NBA. Just consistently, pretty strong scorer.
I think he'll make it. The other player that gets talked about from that draft is like a possible Hall of Famer, because of his helping like teams in playoff situations, and to the point where his nickname is kind of a playoff thing, and that is Playoff Rondo. And Rajon Rondo, like it's at least a debate. Like I don't think like you necessarily like are saying it's for sure, but it's at least a possibility. And
No,
like,
definitely.
If he helps the Clippers, because he was really like LA's like third or fourth best player last year during the playoffs. And if he helps the Clippers like win a championship or something like that, like I think that like he's another guy who could like further his case if he wins like or makes like deep playoff pushes and is a part of that run.
Yet again, he's got a little. He doesn't have the Finals MVP like Andre Iguodala, but he still has some of the the same credentials, pretty close. He's made more All-Star teams than Andre Iguodala. He's led the league in assists and steals.
Yeah,
on defense. So it's like he's there, but obviously he's definitely had some years where he was not as much of a factor on some teams. So yeah, no, definitely. I think Rondo would be a discussion, but I think So with Lowry and LaMarcus Aldridge as well, I don't know how much they're going to get. Like everyone be like, oh, for sure, for sure. They need to get it.
I would think that both of them like have made pretty strong cases, but yeah, it's a discussion at least, and like it's not like they're like automatically in. Like if Chris Webber had to wait, then like they could very well have to wait also.
Yeah, and Sean, I don't think Sean Kemp's in the Hall of Fame. I mean, I know he's somebody that kind of
Oh damn,
had some super insanely strong years like in his career and his
he did. He did never win the ring, but yeah, and also like for as much as Sean Kemp played 1,051 games, how many did LaMarcus and Kyle play? Oh wow, so yeah, LaMarcus played fewer. I will say like LaMarcus had like longer sustained success, I believe.
Yeah.
And then Kyle is at how many games? Kyle, wow, that's 60. Yeah, crazy, man. Sean Kemp.
Yeah.
Never
And he
been
was,
okay.
so, he took Seattle to, a finals, but
Wild times, Jason.
his career,
He's correct.
Kind of, took a nosedive at a point, but
Yeah.
definitely someone you think of it, when you look back at players of that era.
Just another way they screwed Seattle, man.
But 2000.
And then another player from that draft who's like very good, but I think like likely not a Hall of Famer. But another guy like made a handful of all-star teams, Paul Millsap. But yeah, I think that the guys who you talk most about in terms of Hall of Fame from that class are Kyle and LaMarcus.
Then
And then 2007.
I think we have at least one player that
There's one who's an absolute lock.
And that is based on
a lock for a
cultural
while.
impact. And that's
Yeah.
Greg Oden. Oh no, sorry.
You absolute abysmal hater.
Much love to Greg Oden.
Visenberg podcast, like a true friend of the podcast, Greg Oden. And Jason Visenberg just wants to.
That's what I said. As a contributor,
that's nice of you. That's really nice.
As a contributor for cultural impact, but for basketball playing, I think I would personally go with Kevin Durant.
For the culture. Yes, Kevin Durant is a lock for the Hall of Fame and one of the best scorers in NBA history, a two-time Finals MVP and two-time champion. Did win the famous MVP with his mom being the real MVP. And I think there's a chance he could win another championship or possibly a couple. Who knows? Like Brooklyn is set up really well right now. And yeah, like they may be the favorite to win the NBA Finals this season, or at least have a really good chance of getting there and making some noise. So yeah, he is definitely a Hall of Famer and has been for a very long time. And then there are other like questionable guys. I think Al Horford is like one of those question mark kind of guys. And Al has been part of like a number of really good teams who have like never gotten over the hump, but he's been a really good player.
Five-time All-Star.
Yeah. 5-time All-Star. He is a one-time All-NBA guy, made an all-defensive team, 2018 made all-defensive second team, and then was with some really good Atlanta Hawks teams, some really good Boston Celtics teams.
And then you look back to college though too. He also had championships at Florida.
Did indeed. Yeah. And another player from that Florida team who's no longer in the NBA, but or I don't know, Joakim Noah, I guess, was kind of like all over the place. I'm pretty sure he retired.
He's not currently on our roster. I don't know if he's still trying to be.
But yeah, Joakim Noah obviously won all defensive player, but I would think Al has a much better chance at the Hall of Fame. But I'm
I think it depends.
Player from this draft. Depends on what.
Like kind of what you're, which I think like.
You there?
Yeah. I think Joakim Noah again in college too, like, I mean, he was kind of like the face of those teams.
Oh, dude, we're not even. I don't think Joakim Noah has a chance. But yeah, like his peak in the NBA was good, but yeah, like I don't think he has a chance.
No, Al Horford was consistently a better
Al
player.
Horford, yeah, Al Horford had a much better NBA career. And then another player who had a better NBA career from that draft is Marc Gasol. And then with Marc Gasol, you also have to talk about his time in the ACB before, and then his playing career with Spain. And I think, to me, like when you're talking about like guys like Pau Gasol and like Tony Parker, to me, the reason that they get in is likely like their international playing career, like beyond the NBA. And yeah, I have a feeling like that's the reason why those guys likely made the Hall of
You
Fame.
would say that for Powell and Tony Parker though? Like, I feel like that helps. That's like nice other extracurriculars, but I feel
Yeah,
like
yeah. I think their NBA careers were both really good, obviously. Like, but would you say like with their NBA, if they had like no outside the NBA playing experience, would you put them in like an NBA like Hall of Fame?
Tony Parker, yeah, yes. Powell, I would think too, based on those seasons with the Lakers. Like, I
Yeah.
think
I mean, like I think both certainly have a chance, but I think that their international career is what puts them like over the top.
of course, because again, like it's how they established
And I think that's what like Marc Gasol, like what he would rly upon beyond his NBA career, which was obviously very good as well. Yeah, like with Mark, won a Defensive Player of the Year, won an NBA championship with the Toronto Raptors, was on some really good Memphis teams where he was like, a driving force.
he was a rock in the middle.
Then this year, like, Lord knows what the Lakers are going to do, but if they're going to do something, it's likely with Marc Gasol being a fairly large part of it. and the other thing with Mark is, the amazing thing is when he won his Defensive Player of the Year, he was all defensive second team. Make sense of that. And then, but yeah, he was an All NBA first team in 2015. And then was an All NBA second team in the year he won All Defensive second team and Defensive Player of the Year. So yeah, I think like Marc Gasol's somebody you certainly talk about with that as well. Doesn't have as many All-Star game appearances as Al Horford. Only has 3, but yeah, like was another player who with his success with Spain, with everything there, I think might even have like a better Hall of Fame resume than Al Horford, or at least somewhere like comparable.
Yeah.
And then somebody I just wanted to shout out because he finally made his first All-Star team, and he was also on so many like good teams, and then has been such a crucial part of a really good team this year is Mike Conley Jr.
Yeah.
And I feel like he was always like an underappreciated guy. Somebody like pretty amazing that he made his first All-Star team this season. And yeah, I don't see him as a Hall of Fame player, but he's somebody that I at least wanted to give a shout out.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's like, again, like very consistently good player.
Yeah.
And
let's move on. What were you saying?
Oh, the only other player I would say from this draft is just the people's champion, Nick Young, but that'd be more contributor status.
Yeah. If you want a Drew League Hall of Famer.
Also just like he's also like the GIF Hall of Famer with the one where he like totally bricks a shot and is like, hey, guard.
For the culture.
The people's champ.
2008. That was a draft that seemed to be like absolutely stacked. And I feel like there are 2 guys, one who's a lock, and then the other who at least has a really good case. And that is Russell Westbrook and Kevin Love, the UCLA guys, the 4th and 5th pick in that draft. Yeah, I like Russ won MVP,
He's got the record for triple doubles. He's averaged a triple
That,
double like for
yeah,
seasons. Like he's been in the finals. Obviously, he hasn't been in a lot of finals, but yeah,
yeah.
his
His
individual
career averages are 23.2 points per game, 8.5 assists per game, and 7.4 rebounds. And yes, he's a really big guard, but he's still a guard.
and he still goes at fifth gear even now, like 14 years into his career.
Man, 4 seasons where he's averaged a triple double. I know it's a lot easier to get triple doubles now, but that's still impressive. and let's just say, like, nobody gets them at the frequency of Russell Westbrook.
No one else is
While
doing
you could say that, like, maybe to his detriment at times. I don't think it kills teams as much as not being able to shoot that well does. But yeah, like Russ trying to get rebounds and doing stuff like that. Like even today, where like he had like 13 rebounds in the first half, and they were like, "Oh, he's not playing with passion." It's like, what the frick are you talking about? Like, yeah, he's not shooting with passion, and like he hasn't been. He's not really a great shooter. That's one of the things you live and die with Russell Westbrook is he's going to take shots. He may not make a lot of them. He's very streaky. But yes, like he's going to play hard. And like, if you call getting 13 rebounds in the first half not playing with passion, I don't know what.
I know. Yeah, sorry. He could have had 14. That other one he could have gone after. But
one of like his last one, like he was like basically out of bounds, comes back and establishes himself, and gets like the tip dunk too, like with Tatum kind of sleeping on the rebound. So yeah, like just Jason Tatum was the best player today, but knock it off with like the whole Russell Westbrook like passion stuff. Yes, like has he at times done things that are like infuriating in terms of like taking last second shots where he has like some of the best scorers in the world playing next to him? Yes, but he's done a lot of really great things, and he's had a really solid NBA career. Kevin Love is somebody who's missed like a lot of time due to injury, but he was a pretty crucial piece on a championship team. And then he had like all those years where he was like the rebounding
the ball like a psychopath. Yeah, and like he's still gonna like if his career were to end right now, he'd finish his career with basically 18 points a game and 11 rebounds.
Yeah,
like that's pretty.
37% from 3 as well.
Pretty solid. He's 5-time All-Star, and he also 2-time All-NBA, and he won Most Improved Player 2010-11.
Yeah.
Got a lot going for him.
Yeah.
But obviously
I would say
time.
Yeah, and it's hard for me to really have much of like the only other player who I think like kind of gets mentioned as a Hall of Fame possibility. And I think this is going to be like the giant exception to the rule, but I don't think Derrick Rose has had a Hall of Fame career. And he would be the only MVP, I believe, at least like, some MVPs have some to establish as far as being a Hall of Famer. I'm guessing like, I don't know. I feel like everybody, like the guy who's going to win it this year, to me is looking like a Hall of Famer. But yeah, I'm not sure I would have Derrick Rose as I wouldn't have Derrick Rose as a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I mean,
what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I guess after like there's 2 Derrick Roses, right? There's like before and after the injury. And yeah, he's had good flashes. He's had nice things, but I feel like he's never really carried a team like he did in Chicago.
Yeah.
So that's why I think it gets a little tough to say, like, if is he like a Hall of Fame? Like, is he at that exceptional elite level? So I definitely
I don't think so.
Yeah, like I think it gets discussion, but I think like overall at the end of the day, his last All-Star game was in his 4th year. And he hasn't made it since. He's had some good scoring seasons, but again, is he, defensively a
Just like
stalwart?
it's that like, heater scorer off the bench, and yeah, like I just don't think he's done enough.
His only all NBA years also his only MVP year. It's tough. He had that window and that potential. I
Like
think
unreal that like the guy was able to win MVP like in his third season. Like it, like we're gonna have some guys on the list who definitely were not even close to as established as Derrick Rose after 3 seasons. And those guys are guys who we feel are like on the right track, and absolutely did, like after his first few years, you felt like Derrick Rose was on the right track to be like among like possibly all-time great point guards. But yeah, I just have a really hard time thinking that he has a Hall of Fame resume.
yeah, it's like about again,
I know the injury played a part in that, but yeah, it's really tough.
hasn't really played a full season in basically since 2010-11, and then it's going to finish with like 12,000-ish points. It's just it's hard to say that he's there as far as like career excellence. I think his peak happened to be very high, but it was very short. Like it was very short. It was super short lived. So yeah, I think
you could say it was like a 1-year peak. Like, honestly,
it,
even that season after his MVP season, like it was injury shortened, but yeah, man, still pretty amazing that he's played 646 NBA games. But yeah, I have a hard time with him being a Hall of Fame player. I think there's a lot of other really good players in this class, but I don't think any who are really in the Hall of Fame discussion.
yeah, I think solid team contributors, on their respective teams, but not like I don't think anyone that's above and beyond, especially if we're setting Derrick Rose as kind of the not gonna get in threshold, for this draft. It's like no, I don't think anyone even got to that Derrick Rose point.
Let's talk about 2009, and I think it was a draft that wasn't seen as being as strong as 2008, and through time has turned out to have some top end players who I think are well above and beyond what came out of 2008. There's a couple I think who are absolute locks. That would be Stephen Curry,
Stephen Curry,
Wardell, and James Harden. Stephen Curry, of course, being a complete lock. James Harden, I feel, is a lock as well.
Yeah, I mean he has his MVP. He's won his 6, early in his career, and he's just
and like MVP shares too, like always like in the running like the past number of years. Even this year, like for a long time, like he was at least in the conversation.
I mean, he had three 30-point plus, point a game scoring seasons, which again,
he's
like
one of the best scorers of all time.
Doesn't have, and getting to the amount that he gets to the free throw line, like
if you just look at like raw statistics, like which I think some people do, and I wouldn't even be surprised if some voters do, like James Harden scored more points than Stephen Curry by like quite a bit. Like, and is Stephen Curry still like a better all-time player and like the best player from this draft? Yes. But yeah, James Harden's just played more games, and like he's had some incredible sustained like scoring seasons as well.
And plus good chance of having at least some playoff, good playoff success and runs with Brooklyn possibly as well. But yeah, like Harden total.
Well, yeah. But he's like honestly, James Harden's had like some really good runs also.
Oh, totally. And he's also had some of those years where he's like led the league in scoring and still gotten pretty good assist number, like still gotten very good assist numbers. So yeah, I think
I felt like I've said this before, but I felt like he should have won 2 MVPs in a row. I thought the year he led the NBA in assists, he should have won MVP over Russ, but that was me. But yeah, those guys are obvious. A guy who may not be like as obvious, but I think has built like a solid case for himself. Blake Griffin. And yes, like Blake Griffin, start of his career seemed to be like his peak, though he does eventually like become an all-star also with Detroit. And he even made like all NBA third team in 2019. Like
And along with
not
and
very
along
long
with Chris
ago.
Paul brought the Clippers to respectability for the first time in the franchise's history.
Pretty big.
Also, it's
Pretty
kind of
big.
the end of the Donald Sterling days, which was also kind of helped. But yeah, like
Six-time all-star. Finished third in MVP voting in 2014.
he's kind of he's got his dunk contest thing too. As far as like fan engagement, an investment into him as a
Sir,
personality.
sir, I do not think that should be a part of his MVP
I don't
conversation
think it's a part, but I think like again, it's like
or Hall of Fame conversation at all.
no, I don't think it defines the Hall of Fame conversation, but I think it's like he was a very popular player of his era. I think that also kind of
I think it was more his in-game dunks than that. As I said, when we had the dunk contest spectacular, the Blake Griffin dunk contest to me was like so cringe. I just
no, a little bit.
I didn't like it.
I mean,
But
I would say the same
like
thing
he
about
had
his.
some ridiculous in-game dunks. He was a very good player.
I would also say the
And
same thing about his
but
roast
he's
battle
like,
and his stand-up comedy. But
hey, yeah, I can't hate on the guy for killing it right now in that arena. I don't watch his shows or anything like that, but I'm happy for him doing that.
he does have a prank show coming out on True TV. I wouldn't mind.
But doesn't he? Isn't it like he like pranks the prankster or like something like that? I hate prank shows, but still, it's like Beyond Impractical Jokers. Those guys are obviously great, but yeah,
Yeah.
most shows I'm not a fan of. But yes, he's at least in the conversation, and yeah, like like you're saying with James Harden, like building on his. Well, I think James Harden's already clinched it, but yeah, Blake Griffin, I think at least has a chance to build on his resume, like if he is a contributor on.
Yeah, I think those are just things that like shine it up a little bit. It's still again like I think a bit of a talk with especially if you were going to compare just straight with those other two players. One's got
Who
to
do you
get.
think has a better case, Blake Griffin or Kevin Love?
Honestly, I'd probably say Kevin Love because he had those rebounding seasons. He had like that huge rebounding game, and then also he has the championship. Was probably a bit of a better scorer. I would say like than Blake, just based on shooting the ball, but
I think Blake Griffin had like some really nice like playoff series as well. Yeah, like it's kind of crazy because Kevin Love, like once he got to a winning team, he like clearly like was never like that like as high level of a guy as he was when he was putting up like those numbers.
of course, and then once LeBron left, I mean, it's not like he kept Cleveland at a sustainable level either.
Exactly.
But yeah, I think both of them are they'd be up for some discussion.
Yeah.
And so it might take a year or two to push them through.
I just wanted to mention a couple other 2009 guys who I don't think are Hall of Famers, but like at least probably in discussion. DeMar DeRozan, a player who is very polarizing, and people talk about him in terms of like how much he helps winning and like his on-off numbers and all of that. But he's had a really solid career, and like just for the longest time, one made like the Raptors, I believe, like an overachieving team, and made a number of all-star teams, and he just kept getting better for like the longest time also. Like I think that is something that people kind of sleep on as well with DeMar, is like how much he improved from season to season. And then another player who just has been like a really important player, and has been like, I think only an all-star like once, but he has at least been on like the precipice of being an all-star like a few other times. And that's Drew Holiday, and also like a tremendous defender. and playing a really strong role. Like, I think legitimately like the third best player on a team that will, try and make some noise in the Eastern Conference playoffs once again in Milwaukee. So yeah, just wanted to give him a shout out. But yeah, I feel like they're on the outside looking in for sure.
Yeah, I would say, like I'd probably say if you had to do one of the two, it'd probably be DeMar over Drew.
Yeah, I just think for sustainability, but yeah, when it comes to, I think most people, when you're thinking of building a team, like Drew Holiday kind of fits that mold, maybe a little more than DeMar DeRozan even. And 2010, I'm gonna say it. I think Paul George had a Hall of Fame career, and yeah, I think he's going to make the Hall of Fame.
Five-time all NBA,
Yeah,
time all defense. I think those are pretty.
has now played more games than Blake Griffin.
And still
He was also
with
third
playoff
in
intention.
What were you saying?
Still going with playoff intentions right now as well. So it's not like,
Oh yeah. Well, yeah.
done, but yeah, I think, just as being, a consistent all-star, all NBA guy, I think he does get the nod.
Yeah, been all defensive first team a couple times, all defensive second team a couple times. Did make the all NBA first team. So yeah, I think Paul George, best player from 2010 draft, and is a likely Hall of Famer. And there are three guys from that draft who I guess you could talk about, but I don't think they're Hall of Famers. John Wall, just missed time, and yeah, just don't think he did enough to necessarily get there.
Yeah, he has the all-star, all-star
Part of
doesn't have the all NBA, kind of credentials.
Yeah. Part of it was circumstances, but yeah, like, he just wasn't carrying that team like over the top. You have Gordon Hayward, very good player, but yeah, just don't think he's a Hall of Famer. And DeMarcus Cousins, who for a while was a very, very good player as well, but just don't think he's a Hall of Fame player.
Yeah, no, I think, when he was peaking, that was high, but I think, yeah, he's had, many years after where he's not at that consistent level. So it's hard to see him being in that discussion. And also, again, like sad, injury circumstances as well, because he signs with Golden State and then he gets like hurt, so those things have really affected his career longevity out, and how we look back on his career. But definitely for a couple of years, one of the the better centers in the league. But yeah, it's going to be, I think, a outside looking in Hall of Fame situation.
Oh, I just don't think he's really got much of a chance. 2011. This was a draft that was seen as being like almost like a weak draft. And it ends up having four guys who I think are like almost like mortal locks for the Hall of Fame, or at least have made like fantastic cases. At least one is like, to me, is a mortal lock, in Kawhi Leonard. Two-time Finals MVP, and what he did with the Toronto Raptors, like leading them to the championship. Also one of the better defensive players of his era as well, and still like among the top players in the NBA right now.
Yeah, like even when he's the kind of player that he doesn't play all the time, doesn't play every day, but when he does play, he is.
The Clippers are like a legit championship.
And on that Raptors team in the playoffs, like he was the best player in the league. Like there was not a question at those moments.
At
that, in the playoffs,
in the playoffs, he had the best playoffs.
Yeah, like he was pretty unstoppable.
He was great. He was very. That was a very impressive run. I think Kyrie Irving has probably done enough to be a Hall of Fame player, or certainly is right around there. I think Jimmy Butler is right around there as well, and is probably going to be a Hall of Fame player. And then the fourth player that I would have there is Klay Thompson, who I know missed this season, but is a 3-time NBA champion, been to the NBA Finals 5 times. Hoping that he comes back
Can
and
score a lot of points without ever dribbling, just like catch and shoot, just let it go. And I think, the impact of those Splash Brothers teams, like, yeah, that gets Clay in.
yeah. So yeah, I think those 4 guys, if they haven't already like cemented themselves as Hall of Famers, they're like well on their way. I feel like Kawhi Leonard at the very least has cemented himself, and the other guys I think are like, likely, very, very likely Hall of Famers. A few guys I guess you can talk about from that draft. I think they're all not Hall of Famers, but Kemba Walker is usually the 5th guy that you mentioned among those players, and very good, but I think would still have a ways to go to be a Hall of Famer. You've got Vooch, who's been a couple time All-Stars, Nikola Vucevic. I don't think he's a Hall of Famer though.
Yeah.
And Isaiah Thomas, as fun as he was and as great as he was at times, I just don't think he's done enough to be a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, that was just it was a short window of excellence.
Yeah.
So I don't think that gets him across there, but overall, again, like, that's another possible 4-player Hall of Fame, class drafts.
Yeah, I know.
Pretty solid for
No, man.
at the time.
Then the next year, I think could be along those lines as well. I have 3 guys being like pretty into the Hall of Fame at this point, and those guys are Anthony Davis. He just what he did last year to win an NBA championship, and then all the years he's been among like the top 5 best players in the NBA. Damian Lillard has made many an All-Star game so far.
Many an All-NBA team.
Many an All-NBA team, absolutely. And I think just you realize, like, I think Portland may have like the longest playoff streak going right now at 8 seasons in a row. And that's crazy to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, like just the NBA, like twists and turns and everything like that. And like the sustained success of the Portland Trailblazers behind Damian Lillard is really
hinging on Dame. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, has been for a very long time. And then the other player I would put in there would be Draymond Green. And I know people will probably fight for Bradley Beal as well. To me, Bradley Beal is still somebody that's making his case, and I think has a chance to be in there. But I think Draymond Green is a lock because of the Warriors' sustained success and his importance as a part of that. To me, he was always like the 2nd or 3rd best guy on their team, and just his defensive ability, and then also like his ability to be like the facilitator on offense. He's an incredibly unique player, can really guard like every position in the NBA as well. Like it's amazing career so far, and I think he's done enough to be a Hall of Fame player. So yeah, I would have Draymond as a lock. Bradley Beal is somebody I think has a very good chance of getting in, but probably still has at least some work to do. And then the other player who I think is really good, but has some work to do as well, and I would have on the outside right now, is Chris Middleton.
Yeah.
Who, he's had another really strong NBA season and has been a really big part of Milwaukee.
Yeah, I think that's Milwaukee championship type run dependent.
Yeah.
Gives him.
Oh man, for sure. Like, he's been Giannis's 2nd guy. And that brings us to 2013. I think Giannis Antetokounmpo has done enough in his NBA career where he could retire and be a Hall of Famer.
Yes.
And I think, to me, he was probably like 3rd or 4th in MVP voting this past season, like, or is likely going to be. I would have him on the All NBA first team as well. Luckily, we're at a point where we can have both Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic on that as well. But then Giannis, Stephen Curry, and I'm guessing like Chris Paul or Damian Lillard. And yeah, I think Giannis has done enough. We've talked about him a lot. So
two-time MVP. Yeah, he's good.
And I think that a player who probably like still has to do maybe like a little bit more, but is well on their way, and he's going to win his 3rd Defensive Player of the Year award this season, Rudy Gobert. So yeah, I think Rudy Gobert, if he were to retire right now, may not be a lock, but he's well on his way, and I have a feeling that he's going to be a Hall of Fame player as well.
And yeah, defensively, and with the way Utah's like trending as far as playoff potential, it looks pretty good for Rudy to get that bump.
Yeah, like a few more solid seasons. Like if they win the championship, like if he's not the reason, he's like a reason. I don't think they're going to do it, but the fact that they had the best record in the NBA, really impressive. And yeah, he's going to be the only player on their team who's going to make an All-NBA team. So I have a feeling he's going to be All-NBA second team. Luckily, because they let Joel Embiid
be on that.
Be considered, or Jokic or Embiid be considered forward. Thank you. We can have the 2 top MVP candidates and Jokic and Joel Embiid being on the All-NBA first team and not have to go by positional ridiculousness. 2 players who I think are well on their way to be. So now we're in like, once we get past 2013, we're in like, you still need to make a little bit of a case, but we have some guys who are well on their way. And in 2014, that is Nikola Jokic and Joel Embiid. I feel like Jokic probably has more of a case than Embiid right now. Jokic is going to win MVP this year. I'm fairly confident. And he started playing in the NBA before even Joel Embiid. But he's been an all-star the last 3 seasons, whereas Joel Embiid was at an all-star level, I would say, before then.
And Joel's 2-time all NBA, gonna get that again, this year. I think both of them make pretty insanely strong cases.
Oh yeah. Like yeah, you feel like they're, they need like I would say like honestly, like probably like after like next season, they're like Hall of Fame locks. Like
yeah,
they're well on their way. They're both just fantastic and both like among the top 10 players in the NBA right now. And I think this season you would have them as having the 2 best seasons, unless you have like Stephen Curry or Giannis in there. But yeah, I think that it's likely the MVP is going to be between Jokic and Embiid, and Jokic will win. The amazing thing about Joel Embiid so far, though, is like I just couldn't believe this yesterday. He's played 260 career NBA games. Like that's crazy to me. How few NBA games he's played.
I mean, Bill,
but
he's going the Bill Walton route. He's going that Bill Walton route. You don't have to play
Bill Walton was like 482 though.
Over like a 15-year span though.
Yeah, it was a long time.
Yeah.
But yeah. Or
yeah, Bill Walton definitely, was in the league.
Played, whereas like Nikola Jokic has played in 400 games.
Yeah.
With like 1 per season than Joel being hurt into his they're 2 fantastic centers and the 2 best centers in the NBA by a wide margin. And
I guess like an interesting question though is what would your thought
and they will be all-stars this year, and I don't think they're close to Hall of Fame right now, but it's still very early in their career. Like these guys aren't very old. So
No, totally.
yeah,
Like you think about Julius Randle just coming into, coming in now, really
yeah.
into his own.
And
Like,
Julius has a chance to be All NBA this year. Like I think at the high amazing. And this is so cool. Zach LaVine, I think, is right around the same. So yeah. So they their career have, I think, quite a ways to go to make a Hall of Fame game, but just 2 first-time All-Stars that I want. A guy in 2000 who I think is definitely like looking like he will be a Hall of Famer if his career maintains, and I think he certainly is in like the group of centers just outside like the Embiid, Bear. I honestly would rather have this player than Gobert. Karl Anthony Towns, and I just think Cat. I hope either the man can do it, and it seems like we're in the process of doing that.
yeah, Anthony Edwards does turn out to be, a good pick. So hopefully that can be someone with Cat that can, do something in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. The ultimate hope this season is they get a top 3 pick and get to keep pick. So we can hope for that, and that would just be so huge. Either one of like Cade Cunningham, Evan Mobley, Jalen Suggs, Jalen Green. I'm guessing it would be among those 4 guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think if they can keep
a really big factor in
if
terms
they can
of
keep that pick, that's huge.
Game Minnesota further.
What about Devin Booker as far as one of the, the best scorers?
Yeah. So I'm going to mention the 2 guys who I think like Garner now, good case, has made the All-Star team cons, and Angus, it's so hard to say, like because he's been hurt so often, and so but a very talented player and got off to such a good start in his NBA career, has already been a one-time All-Star. So yeah, Kristaps I don't think has close to as good of a case as Devin Booker right now, but yeah, it would be
Kristaps, I think Kristaps,
another who I would have right after him.
Kristaps kind of needs a playoff. What? Like Kristaps needs like a playoff. He and Luka to do something to really make that kind of bounce.
Devin Booker finally made the playoffs,
yeah.
And Karl Anthony Towns hasn't had a huge playoff resume either. But yeah, I still feel like we're very hopeful that these guys have a bright future. But yes, like as we said, we're in the territory now where we're not calling anybody a Hall of Fame.
No, totally, because there's still plenty of
2014 on, yeah,
of time. Either way.
A guy who I think from 2016 who's made like a really good case early on is Ben Simmons. And to me, Ben Simmons still has been the best player from that draft. But yeah, like some good players. Hard to say like any of them have made like amazing like Hall of Fame cases so far. I think Jamal Murray last year in the playoffs was
shows the flashes.
Yeah, definitely has flashes. And man, like Denver would have been a really good team this playoffs, and they're still good, but I think they would have had that extra notch if Jamal had been healthy for it. And Jaylen Brown looked really good this season. Jaylen Brown and Brandon Ingram both have really come into their own, and I think we'll need like a bunch more All-Star games and some All-NBA love, but at least they're looking like they're on their way. Domas Sabonis has been really good the last couple seasons or the last like, 3 or so seasons. But
Yeah, I think
yeah,
for
like still definitely has to build on that.
yeah, I think the All-Star games are great. I think for Indiana, it's just, is he going to be able to
I
go
would say your internet freeze. What?
if he's going to be able to go, deep in the playoffs with Indiana?
Oh,
Or
you froze.
apologize for that. Having a little internet connectivity fun times right now. Thank you, my friends at Spectrum. But for Domas, it's tough because it's like, is he going to be the guy in Indiana, or is it like, is he going to go somewhere else and kind of just finish his career as like a solid contributor?
Yeah. And like you would think like if his team is really good, he's like that solid contributor.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's been good. And then a guy who like was looking like he was well on his way, but kind of took a little bit of a step back, Pascal Siakam. And Pascal Siakam like already like, made an all-star team, made an all-NBA team last year. He was all-NBA second team last year.
He has a championship.
And he did. And not only did he have a championship, but to me, he was like the second best player on that championship team. So yeah, I just I can't really write him off so far, but yeah, like I feel like he took like a step back and wasn't exactly what we thought like moving forward, and maybe like, or at least was like a step behind a lot of these players that I had mentioned ahead of him on the list, but at least somebody who has shown some really solid flashes early on in his career. All of those guys still have a lot of work to do. There are 3 players from 2017 who I think have like at least started a nice resume, and that is Jason Tatum,
Yes.
Donovan Mitchell,
Yes.
and Bam Adebayo.
Yes. I'm not going to disagree with
yeah.
that. I think those are the 3 that, again, keeping their trajectories look like they'd be heading that direction.
Yeah.
No
player this year.
Sadly, no Lonzo Ball.
No, or Markelle Fultz.
Yeah.
But I so I'm not completely done with this class yet, but no, I'm just saying with those 3 guys, Tatum and Bam are,
looks like we're having
at least
bit of a hiccup on the technical
I
side
think
here. So just give it 1 second. Sorry, looks like I'm having an internet fun situation right now.
Fuck.
Sorry, it's the internet, so it's it gives and it taketh, and right now it'd be take a thing.
Yeah. You good?
I hope I'm good. It's I don't control the waves of the spectrum, but
a lot of freezing and everything like that. Okay, so I can continue with my bullshit about Jason Tatum and Bam Adebayo being on the All-NBA team.
Yeah, I think.
Damn, I hope it's recording.
It is everything's recording. It's just unfortunately, like sometimes with the power of Zoom and the internet, there's only so much that can go wrong, and
Got it.
It does.
So yeah, I think Jason Tatum.
Yeah, it looks like you're still having this connectivity issue here, but I think, I just for the brevity, I don't want to go on and keep having if this is going to be a buggy situation, but definitely I'd say for that class, Tatum, Bam, and Donovan Mitchell all make super strong cases, and then I think if we're going to move on to 2018. You look at Luka, obviously.
I think De'Aaron Fox also is somebody. You there?
Yes. But yeah, I think
De'Aaron Fox was also somebody that.
Yeah, I think he's someone we talked about as a potential all-star too at some point as well. So hopefully that's something that can,
Yeah.
help bump him up. And then coming into 2008,
Okay.
I really feel like Luca obviously is on that path. He's becoming one of those dudes. You have Trey Young, maybe, he's making some all-star teams, but obviously hasn't
Yeah.
had a lot of, next level postseason.
Doncic, obviously.
So yeah, I think Luca and I think Trey Young would be probably the two guys. Is there anyone else you would think from that? I mean, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander has had some moment. I mean, Michael Porter Jr., again, still very young, not sure what he's going to end up, becoming in his career. But any other kind of thoughts on this, on 2018?
And then, yeah, there are some other interesting players there. Yeah, other interesting players there, but yeah, I think those are some good names to start with. And then it's obviously so early with the other two classes, but Zion Williamson, John Morant, off to a very strong start. And I think this year, like, we had two players that had fantastic rookie seasons in Anthony Edwards and LaMelo Ball. To me, LaMelo Ball had the better rookie season, but yeah, they both were great. And I will say Anthony Edwards, like, improvement like after the coaching change and as the season progressed.
I think again, like, yeah, finished a lot stronger.
Improved his shooting.
And as he's shown before in some interviews, he's a very competitive person. So he's someone that is gonna push to get better. And then when it comes to this upcoming draft, who knows? We will.
Yeah, it's we have a few that we have a feeling about.
But again, with a lot of them, it's a feeling, and you don't really know until they get that jersey on, until they get in the get in those games. So,
all right, well, yeah, I'll let you go because I don't know how much of my audio probably came up out of this.
The majority of it came until about 2018, but we appreciate you guys taking the time to come check us out, come listen. If you want to follow the both of us on social media, that's at Viseland. You want to send us an email, that's viselandpod@gmail.com. And if you let us know if there's someone that you think is a Hall of Fame guy that's not getting that love, or people are debating on, drop us a comment. We'd love to know who's someone that you are ride or die for to get them in the Hall of Fame, even though other people may not have that same opinion. We love some good hot takes. And if you want to follow me personally, I'm at Jay Visenberg. You want to follow that man, Michael Visenberg, personally, that's at NBA Draft Mikey V. And we will catch you guys next week.